Hey, one of the main issues when trying to work out product compliance is the first step to understand the regulations that apply to a specific product in a specific market. You take, for example, watches. I'm going to sell watches in the United States. What do I need to comply with? And I plan to sell children's products in the European Union. Which regulations apply? What labeling do I need? The documentation and so on. So in this video, I will show how the sources that you can use, the information sources that you can use to actually make that assessment, to confirm the regulations that apply to a specific product in a specific country. So first we have government websites, because clearly when it comes to this kind of stuff, information is obviously public, but it can be a bit tricky to know exactly where to go. So first, in the United States, they have CPSC.gov. This is the official website of the Consumer Product Safety Commission, where you can find information about CPSAA and a number of substance regulations covering various chemicals and heavy metals. The good thing is that this website is unlike most government websites, quite user friendly. They provide a lot of information. It's not just in English but also in Spanish and even in Chinese. They provide the regulatory robot where you fill in some information, and they give you an assessment of the regulations that apply and the steps you need to take and so on. And they even provide free guidance, free advice through the Small Business Ombudsman. So this is, if I would rate compliance, government regulatory websites, I definitely give this one 9 out of 10. This is a really good one. So that's number one. If you plan to sell in the States, that's where you should begin. Okay, and just keep in mind that there are also other websites, because it's not just one government agency that's in charge of implementing and enforcing product regulations, but it's a very good start. Number two, we have the European Commission website, where you find information about CE marking, REACH, EN 71, and all the other directives that apply to consumer products in the European Union. It's a very big website. It's not as user friendly as the one I just showed you for the Americans, for CPSC, but it's transparent. You find really everything you need to know about compliance can be found on the EC website. The difficulty is navigating and actually interpreting and understanding all this information. That's where it definitely lacks in that aspect. But you find everything you need for importing and selling products to the EU. Well, compliance, because doesn't really have anything to do with importing and exporting. Okay. Now, rather than trying to get in touch with the admin or contact using the contact form on this website, if you need guidance, you should be contacting the official local national member state website. The thing is that even though regulations are harmonized in the EU when it comes to product directives for electronics, toys and so on, it's actually enforced, it's actually implemented by the national market surveillance authorities. Okay, so if you're in Germany, you contact the local German authority specifically for, say, electrical safety or consumer products. So that's a pretty big difference compared to for example CPSC.gov, where you can contact them right there on the website, and it serves the entire United States. So you should be contacting the national EU member state websites for guidance. Okay, and the way that's structured really depends on each country. So it's quite different. And I should also mention that there's quite a big difference in between different member states in terms of how helpful they actually are. I found that those in Sweden, where I come from, for example, they can be quite helpful. Also in the UK, but yeah, they are leaving the EU, so we'll see about how that goes. But if you're based in a country, and I don't want to call anyone out, that turns out to well, the regulators are not that forthcoming in assisting exporters and importers. What you could actually do is you can get in touch with, say, those in the Netherlands or in Sweden, for example, because they do provide support in English, and you can get really far by reviewing information and contacting market surveillance authorities for advice on regulations that apply to your product and so on. So that's a very good start if you're based in the EU. Okay, then we have Product Safety Australia, and this one is fantastic. You see a summary of all the mandatory regulations that apply to specific product categories right here under product safety laws. I think, and I may be wrong, but I think it applies. I think this website covers everything except for food products and electronics. There's a separate website specifically for electronic standards, but other than that, if it's furniture, if it's bicycles, toys and so on, you find it right here on product safety, gov.au. You can also get support right here. You can contact them right here, so you can get a lot of free guidance on this website. Fantastic website. Okay. Tip number 2, get a quotation from a testing company. You can reach out to a company like Bureau Veritas or SGS and request a quotation for a specific product to be sold in a specific country. So, for example, if I plan to sell watches in the European Union, I reach out to them and say, hey, I got this watch, I want to sell it in the EU. What sort of testing can you offer? Because what you will receive is something like this. You will receive a list of tests that they believe to be mandatory for that specific product, and all of a sudden I have a free assessment from them, because they have to quote me in order for me to buy like the testing services. But the good thing is that you can actually get a list of, like a free list of regulations that apply to a specific product. So basically what we see here is a list of different REACH tests and an RoHS directive. Okay, now it's quite straightforward, but it's a very cost-effective method to figure out which regulations or standards that apply to your product, and then you can, based on this, you can tell them, thanks, I get back to you in 6 months or something. You take this list of standards back to the drawing board, back to your supplier, back to your designers and engineers to assess if your product is compliant and so on. And yeah, just to recap on the testing companies, because you shouldn't be going to any other testing company. You should only reach out to those that have a good reputation, that's been around for a while. Like some of these, like Bureau Veritas, has been around since the 1820s, so a really long time. But yeah, I suggest you reach out to BV, Intertek, TUV, SGS, and yeah, maybe also Chima, based here in Hong Kong. Right. Just keep in mind that confirming the regulations is only the first step of the process. You need more than just a list of regulations or chemical standards that apply to a product. It's more than that. And you basically, as an importer, exporter, manufacturer, you need to dig deep, and you need to understand what this specific regulation or the list of regulations mean in terms of product design, in terms of product safety, in terms of documentation, in terms of labeling, okay, and also lab testing requirements. So it's really only the first step of the process. Okay, because end of the day, as I just mentioned, it comes down to implementing those regulations into the product design of your product, okay, and creating product and packaging label files, creating the compliance documentation. That could be a declaration of conformity, for example, and book lab testing. So it's really only the first step, but yeah, I mean, we will have to start somewhere. And if you want assistance, if you don't want to do everything on your own, you can reach out to us on compliancegate.com/help. Fill in this form, share some information about the product, where you plan to sell it, and your details, and our consultants will get back to you within 1 to 2 days to offer a quotation.